talked about 2 terms. We've talked about 3 terms. Now let's talk about 4 terms. Because we did the technique with 3 terms, we kind of have an idea how to do 4 terms, but let's look even further into those, okay? So let's look at polynomials that have 4 terms. Okay, last type of polynomial we will factor is with 4 terms. So with doing the AC method, we've already learned how to do a problem that has 4 terms in it, because we actually did that with the factor by grouping with the AC method. So let me put an example up and we're just going to go into solving that problem. Okay. So let's say 6x squared plus 14bx minus 15ax minus 35ab. So 4 terms. Is there a GCF among all 4 of the terms? And when I look, I have 6, 14, 15, 35. There is not a GCF among all 4 of the terms. And so since there's 4 terms, I'm just going to jump right into factor by grouping, because that's what you do when you have 4 terms. You look at the first 2 terms and you see if there's a GCF among the first 2. And yes, there is. That is going to be 2x. And then in the parentheses, you're left with 3x plus 7b. And then last 2 terms, you're left with, let's see, a GCF among the last 2, a 5. But we're going to say -5 because they both are negative and we're trying to get positive. So -5 and let's say an A, and you're left with 3x plus 7b. And then you have this. So we know we're going in the right direction. We talked about this before. If the parentheses look the same, you know you're going in the right direction. And so I bring those 2 parentheses together and say, okay, this turns into 3x plus 7b. And then you're left with 2x minus 5a. And this is completely factored. Okay. And we can look at another example. It's like, if you know how to do AC method, you definitely know how to do factor by grouping, which is a good thing because it minimizes how much we have to solve or other techniques we have to learn. I'm looking for an example now. Okay, so 5xy minus 12 minus 4y plus 15x. Okay, is there a GCF among all 4? No. So we're going to go right into factor by grouping because I counted my terms and I have 4 terms. So GCF among the first 2 terms, is there a GCF that I can take out? No, there's not. So the interesting thing here, and this may happen, you may have to rearrange your terms. Because I can tell there's, I see some common factors that I can put together, like the 5 and the 15, and then the 4 and the 12 can be put together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rearrange this problem so that the 5 and the 15 are together and the 12 and the 4 are together. because it's just not working out the way that it's written right here. And this may happen. You may have to rearrange your problems, and that is completely okay. So let me rearrange this. So I have 5xy. Let me put plus 15x. And then I'm going to put minus 4y minus 12. I'm just trying to put some of the common factors together to see if it can help me solve this problem. Now let's try to factor by grouping. The first two terms I can take out of 5x, and I'm left with a y plus 3. And then for the last two terms, I can take out a 4, but we're going to make it negative 4 because I need to be positive. So negative 4, and I'm left with y plus 3 again. And then look at the parentheses. The parentheses look the same. And so you bring them together and you're going to get y plus 3. And what's not crossed out is 5x minus 4. Okay, to sum up everything, a lot of people like to check their work. And this is a sure way to check your work. Multiply everything back together. So when you get your final answer and you put your pencil down and you're like, you know what, I finished this problem, I feel good about it, and you put the little box around your answer, if you want to check your answer, multiply everything in that box and see if you get the original back. If you multiply everything through and you get the original polynomial back, you know you did it right. Okay? So let's do some examples of checking your work. If you have your problem factored out completely, you can always go back and check and make sure that your answer works. So let's try, let's do a couple of examples where we can kind of check our answers and see if they work. And I'm just randomly picking stuff. Let's do, how about we do this one? So first step in factoring is take out a GCF. GCF is going to be 4, and you're left with x squared minus 4. Then you look inside the parentheses and see if you can factor further. This looks like the difference of two squares because I can take the square root of the first term and square root of the last term. So when you're talking about the difference of two squares, you could do x plus 2 and x minus 2. You write it once with a plus sign and once with a minus sign. So this should be equal to this. And what we can do to make sure that they're equal is multiply it out, right? So if I was to multiply this, I would use the FOIL method and say, okay, let me multiply here and here. That's going to be x squared. Multiply here and here. That's negative 2x. Then I multiply 2 and x. That's going to be positive 2x. And then I do 2 times negative 2. That's negative 4. And so my middle terms cancel out. I get x squared minus 4. And then I also have the 4 on the outside. So I distribute that in. And I get 4x squared minus 16. I get the original problem back. That lets me know that I got the right answer. Okay. So if you, let's try it again, right? Let's say I have, try to find another complicated example. Let's try this one. 12x squared plus 11x plus 2. I think this will work out. So is there GCF? No. How many terms do I have? 3. And I have a number in the front. So I have to do AC method. So I have to find a number that multiply to get 24, but when I add, I get 11. That's going to be 8 and 3. So I use 8 and 3 to split up the middle part. So 12x squared plus 8x plus 3x plus 2. And now let's do our factor by grouping. Here I would take out a 4x, and I'm left with 3x plus 2. And then for the last 2, I can take out a 1, and I'm left with 3x plus 2 again, which is always a good thing because if they are the same, that means you're going in the right direction. And then you have 4x plus 1. So this was the answer that I got. And let's say, hey, I want to check this to make sure I got the right answer. What you would do is just multiply it together and see if you get the original problem back. So I'm going to FOIL this out by doing this times this. This will be 12x squared. Then 3x times 1. That'll be 3x. Then you do 2 times 4. That'll be 8x. And then 2 times 1. That'll be 2. Combine my terms in the middle. 12x squared plus 3 plus 8. That's 11 plus 2. That looks like the original. That's how I know I got it right. And this is something you can do to kind of check your answers. That's what we mean by check by multiplying. You don't always have to do that, but maybe it's something you can do just mentally real quick to make sure you got the right answer. So on the last page, you have some examples to work. And I will be putting the answers to these in the lesson so you can check your answer and see if you're going in the right direction. But before you start, let's do a recap. Let's go back to the beginning, right? So when you're factoring, this is the strategy that I would suggest you use, all right? First, you take out a GCF. No matter how big or small the problem is, you always look for a GCF first. Then step 2, count how many terms you have. If you have 2 terms, we have 3 different techniques you can choose from. Difference of squares, difference of cubes, sum of cubes. That's if you have 2 terms. If you have 3 terms, you basically have 2 different techniques you can use because you could have a trinomial. You could have 3 terms that has a number in the front. You can have one that doesn't have a number in the front. So there's a technique for one that has a number in the front, and there's a technique for one that just has a 1 in the front. We also talked about perfect square trinomials. That's a special type of trinomial that has to be set up a certain way to do it. We also talked about trial and error. It works in some situations. It's not the most popular, but it is a helpful technique to have. Then lastly, you have 4 terms. If you have 4 terms, you automatically go to factor by grouping. Always check your final answer to see if you can't factor further, and then check your answer by multiplying. Now, try your examples and see how it goes.